So let's create a controller. Right click, controllers, add new controller. It's gonna be empty controller. And this one is going to be called song controller. So you can see it inherits from controller class, meaning we have everything that the controller contains available to us. It created an index action, but that's not the one we want. In this controller we want to add, edit, and delete songs. So I'll rename this one to add. But before we do anything, we need to have an access to the context because we are going to be adding, deleting, or editing records from the database. So just like before, we will inject it into a constructor. So I'm going to create a private variable for the song context. I'll call it context, just like before, and this is going to be a property, so get and set. So let's add the constructor, and in it we will inject the DB context. So we'll inject our song context, and again I'll call it CTX, and I will assign the value of the CTX to our context. So context equals CTX. So now we have access to our DB set. So let's create our add action first. Now to add a record, we simply add a song with the properties for the name, year, and rating. So these are the values that the user will enter into text boxes. So what we want to present to the user is a view with empty text boxes that are going to be bound to these properties. And the user will enter values into these text boxes, clicks a button, and we will create the record. So this one will be HTTP GET. We will simply show the user a form into which to enter the song. So I will mark this as HTTP GET, and I will create a view back, and I will create a property called action. So this one is for adding, so this one will be called add. When we edit a record, the property action will be called edit, for example. And again, these are dynamic. You could name them whatever you want, but I just decided to call them action because we will have the add, edit, or delete actions. And all we do here is return the view. Now we could create a view called add. However, we can reuse a view for adding and editing a record because these will basically be the same. We will have text boxes for the properties of the song. The difference is that when we are adding a song, these text boxes will be empty, and when we are editing the song, the text boxes will be populated with the values that the song currently has before we modify it. And in neither case, we are going to add or edit an ID. ID is permanent, so when we add a record, it's going to be added by the entity framework, and when we edit a record, then ID is not going to be edited. So therefore, we can reuse the same view. And since our action is called add, and we want to use a view called edit, we have to specify that. If we just leave it as view, it would be looking for an add view. But we will specify that we want to go to edit view that we will create soon. And we will pass in the model, and the model is going to be the object of the song, because we need to bind the text boxes with the properties of the song class. Now this is a get action, so we don't have anything yet. We don't have the object of song created, but in order to bind these, we need to pass in the model for the song. Otherwise, we wouldn't have access to these properties. We need to have access to the object of song in order to have access to the properties, of course. So we will pass in brand new song object. So that's gonna be in our model. And that's it. We'll simply display the view, and then the user will add the values into text boxes, and when the button is clicked, it will basically perform an update or an edit. So we will have an edit action that will also work as add action. That's why we have the same view. So let's create the edit action next.